So the first one is a non-judicial foreclosure case. And before everyone is like, oh, this is so boring, how horrible, it's so technical. All that is generally true with this area, but this guy did an absolutely amazing thing. Now, in this realm of non-judicial foreclosure, there is one rule, and it applies across the board. Banks win, homeowners lose, period. Now, you need a little background to understand what was happening. So this case really arose, like so many cases for homeowners, out of the Great Recession and banks selling crappy, horrible teaser rate loans to people. And then those loans blew up when they were securitized and sold all over the place. So what happened is they would sell a teaser rate loan. The banks then would securitize a whole bunch of these loans, and then they would sell off pieces of them. And people made huge amounts of money, and as we know, banks always win. No one's been held accountable for the worldwide recession that resulted from all of this. Nothing happened to these folks. Billions of dollars were made, and it's a huge industry. So what happens though, in just their rush to be greedy, is they take all these loans, and these are mortgages, these are people's, human beings' mortgages that they're paying. They take all these loans, and then they sell them all the time. And it's a huge business. And what they don't bother doing is following their own rules to figure out who owns the loan at any given time. And so then when the Great Recession hit, Mr. Antognini's client, Miss Yvanova, she's an artist from Bulgaria, and and like a lot of people, she couldn't keep up with her mortgage payments. Well, the banks also wouldn't work with people to restructure their loan, work out payments, anything like that. They just didn't want to bother with any of it. So she ended up losing her home. And she went to find out who actually owned the loan, and realized that the entity that was foreclosing on her didn't actually own the loan. So her creditor was not actually her creditor. And so she, on her own, not with Mr. Antognini yet, she is from Bulgaria, English is her second language. She went pro se and brought a suit for wrongful foreclosure against the lender. Needless to say, she has no real estate training, no business background, no legal training. An artist. Needless to say, she lost at the trial court. Why? Because banks and homeowners lose. She then took an appeal, and of course, she lost an unpublished decision. The bank, being the greedy sons of bitches that they are, asked that the unpublished opinion be published. And so it was published, and Richard Antognini came to her and said, you know what? Let me take your case. I want to try to take this to the Supreme Court. Now, when you think about this, what lawyer wants to take a pro se person's case that was lost at the trial court, lost at the Court of Appeal, and she's not even a native English speaker? He takes that case and he puts together an absolutely unbelievable petition for review. One of the things he did was he went through, and I won't bore you with the details about the state of California law, but there was a foothold and there was a conflict in the laws that was absolutely ignored by the courts of appeal. And to a ratio of 50 to 1, all of these opinions were unpublished, and they all found that the person did not have standing to sue the creditor who was not actually their creditor. He put together this thing. He convinced the Supreme Court to take it. They took the thing. This is so great. While he was, as the deadline was approaching for him to submit his petition for review, he's a sole practitioner up in Grass Valley. He's out in his garden, he trips, he breaks 2 fingers, and yet he still has to type his petition for review on his own with his broken fingers. Supreme Court takes it. He then goes and argues to the Supreme Court, hey, you know what? People should have a right to know who their creditor is, and they should have a right to be able to challenge whether or not their creditor, who is foreclosing on their home, actually owns the loan. And he prevailed in the California Supreme Court with a truly remarkable decision where the Supreme Court held, as amazing as it seems, but it is miraculous in this area of law, that a person does in fact have standing to sue their creditor for wrongful foreclosure if they believe that the creditor does not own their loan. And that guy won with 2 broken fingers.